Oklahoma Territory. The sun was a dull coin behind clouds, the land cracked and hard as bone. Wind scraped through dead trees like a knife on hide. No birds, no voices. Just that lonesome whistle and the grind of Nora Campbell's boots against brittle dirt. She moved with a rifle slung across her back and a rope coiled at her hip. Her mule had broken off in the night, spooked by coyotes or ghosts or something older. She didn't blame it. The creek bed ahead had dried months ago. What remained was a trench of dust and thorns. But something new, something off carried. Through the wind, a sound, thin, high, strangled. She stopped. Listened. Nothing. Then again, louder this time. A cry, but not in English. A child, maybe, foreign tongue. She stepped carefully along the bank, scanning the shadows until their dot movement. Brown arms thrashing, dirt flying. A boy, no older than 13, neck deep in quicksand. His face was smeared with fear. His eyes caught hers, and even from 20 paces, she saw the terror. She froze. Comanche. Everything in her told her to turn back, but her feet didn't move. She stared, heart pounding like thunder on a cabin roof. Her hand went instinctively to her belly, the space where her son used to be. A ghost pain bloomed. God damn it, she muttered, pulling the rope from her hip. She tied it to the gnarled arm of a mesquite, testing its hold. The boy's arms flailed slower now. Sand gurgled around his chest. Hey, she shouted, tossing the rope. Grab it. No sign of comprehension, just panic. She knelt, crept forward, feeling the ground give slightly beneath her. Another foot. If she'd go under, too. Rope, she shouted again, voice rough. She mounted pulling. Finally, the boy's eyes focused. He lunged. Missed. Nora's single quotes as stomach clenched. She threw again, closer. His fingers caught it, slipped, then locked. She braced, leaning back, heels dug in. Hold on, boy, don't you dare let go. With a cry, she hauled, inch by inch. The sand hissed and sucked, greedy for flesh. He came up with a gasp, mud streaking his face, clothes torn. Nora dragged until he rolled onto solid earth, coughing violently, his ribs heaving. For a long moment, neither moved. Then the boy sat up, eyes still wild, breathing through his nose. He wiped his face with one shaky hand. Nora knelt beside him. She said softly, "You're all right now. You're safe." He didn't answer, just stared. She pointed to herself. Nora. His eyes lowered. He pointed to his chest. Tahu. That was all. She helped him to his feet, noting the way he flinched, not from pain, but uncertainty. They walked in silence back toward her shack, a lopsided lean-to near the edge of a ruined thicket, built from old wagon wood and patched with buffalo hide. It didn't look like much. It was and single quotes T. inside. She lit a fire with dry grass and fed it slowly. Tahu sat on a fur blanket, not asking, not thinking, just watching. She handed him a canteen. He took it, drank in sips, careful not to waste a drop. She offered dried bread. He didn't eat. The silence stretched. His eyes never left her face. Outside, coyotes barked in the dark. "People'll be looking for you," she said, mostly to herself. "You got family clothes." No response. She pulled her coat tighter. Her husband's coat. It still smelled faintly of tobacco and blood. "You scared me, you know." She laughed, bitter and quiet. "Damn near left you." Tahu blinked slowly. She sighed. "I lost a boy, too. Not like you, he was younger. Sick, real sick. Didn't scream much. Didn't scream at all." She turned away, ashamed of the tears she didn't let fall. Hours passed. The fire burned low. At some point, he laid down on the fur, still watching her. She slept against the wall, gun within reach, mind full of old prayers and half-forgotten lullabies. Sometime in the night, she woke. He was whispering, not to her, to someone long gone. His voice carried soft into the rafters. Gentle syllables in Comanche, a child's prayer. She didn't interrupt. When dawn came, she opened her eyes to silence. The fire was out, the fur blanket empty. Tahu was gone. Nora stepped outside, scanning the ridge, but there were no tracks, nothing but wind and dust. Her hand touched the spot where he'd slept. Still warm. She stood there, hand on that fading heat, knowing something had shifted. The world hadn't changed, but she had, and something was coming. Asterisk, the sky was sleek gray when Nora returned to her cabin. The kind of gray that made you feel like the world was holding its breath. Her boots sank. into the wet soil as she crossed the narrow field where nothing had grown since the fire last spring. The lean-to shack stood where she'd left it. Smoke-stained wood, blankets stuffed into the holes between boards. No sign of Tahu, not even a footprint. Just silence. She set her traps by the ridge again. Careful with her hands. A few hairs might help through the coming week. The well had run shallow, but she kept drawing metal buckets scraping bone-dry wood until a trickle of water surfaced like gilt dot. By the time she made her next trip to town, the whispers had returned. They say she talks to Comanche in the dark. She fed one, let him sleep under her roof. She's got no husband to keep her in check. That's the danger of it. The old preacher's wife stood in front of the general store like she owned the dirt beneath it. Nora didn't make eye contact as she passed. The woman spat, right, at her boots. Nora didn't flinch. She bought flour and coffee, paid in silence. Left before they could find more poison to spew. The road back twisted through dry brush and memory. She saw flashes of her husband's face, Caleb, lying in the dirt after the raid. Shot by the same men who claimed to protect the settlement. Caleb had done trade with the Comanche, hides for seed, flint for cloth. They called him a traitor. She remembered the heat of his blood on her hands. She never brought that up in town. They had their version. She had the truth. The truth didn't matter much out here. 2 days later, she went out for firewood, carried her axe, and nothing else. It was early afternoon, sky burning pale and cloudless. She'd just finished binding a bundle of mesquite when she heard them. Horses. 3 riders, white men, drunk. Their laughter cracked through the trees before she even saw them. One had a rusted rifle slung over his shoulder. Another wore a stolen cavalry coat. The third, bearded and twitching, called out, "Ain't you the one who keeps dark company?" Nora said nothing. "You know what they call women who bed redskins." He sneered. "We got words for that." They circled her slowly. "Where's your brave?" "Huh?" the one in the coat asked. "He out scouting, or is he hiding under your skirts?" She kept her eyes down, breath steady. "Y'all want something?" she asked. "Whiskey," the bearded one said, "and maybe a little warmth. It's a cold world for men like us." One of them slid off his horse, moved closer. She didn't move until he reached for her arm. His hand touched her sleeve. Her knife was already in motion, a clean arc. The man shrieked as his cheek split open. Blood poured down his shirt. The others jerked in their saddles. Stunned, Nora raised her axe next. Eyes blazing. "Try again," she said. "See what happens." They cursed, spat, and backed off, dragging the wounded man with them. "We'll be back, you crazy bitch," the rider called, voice high. "Next time with more." She stood alone in the clearing until their hoofbeats disappeared. Then she picked up her firewood and walked home like nothing happened. That night, she lit no fire. She sat by the wall with her rifle across her lap. The dark breathed around her. She whispered into the void, "You've been his age now, Caleb. Maybe a little taller." The memory came in pieces. Fever, a child's cry, a hand cooling in hers. She dreamed of quicksand swallowing her. Not her body, her name, her memories, her reason. She awoke before dawn. The wind had shifted. She felt it in her bones. The third night came. Wind howled through the eaves. Her fire was low. She sat with her back to the door, wrapping jerky in cloth. Then dash hooves. Multiple. Slow, deliberate. She rose and turned toward the sound. Out in the clearing, shapes emerged. Tall riders, painted with bone-white symbols, feathers trailing from spears. Comanche. A dozen or more. At their center rode a smaller figure. Tahu. Alive, eyes sharp. He dismounted and stepped forward. "This is my father," he said, his voice no longer a whisper. A man stepped from the saddle, broad-chested, silent, scars crisscrossing his skin like old lightning. He stared at Nora with no hostility, just stillness. She didn't move. Her breath fogged the air. Her fingers didn't twitch toward her weapon. He nodded once, slow. "You saved my blood," he said in low, careful English. "We repay." Nora blinked. Behind him, the other riders said nothing. No war whoops, no threats. Just wind and waiting. The kind of silence that meant something was beginning. The Comanche didn't leave that night. By the time the morning frost clung to the grass, their camp was already staked, half a mile from Nora's cabin. Quiet, ordered, like the land had made room for them. No shouting, no noise but the rhythm of hooves and firewood splitting. Red Elk said little. He watched everything. His face didn't show anger or warmth, just the steady calm of a man who had lived through too much to waste breath. Tahu stayed close to Nora. They didn't speak much, but something passed between them. When she checked her rabbit snares, he followed. When she crouched to reset one, he knelt beside her and tied a knot without asking. Like this, he said. She looked up, startled by the question. Better than me, she murmured. Later, he brought her to the creek and showed her a word Nehi for water, then Katsu for moon. She taught him trap, rope, flint. When she offered him a slice of dried apple, he gave her a carved bird in return. By the third day, they no longer needed translation, not of language, of presence. They simply moved together. The land began to shift, not in color or shape, but in feeling. The air felt less hollow. But peace doesn't last on the edge of things. By late afternoon, the wind picked up dust. Nora was chopping firewood when she saw the dust plume rise on the far ridge. Raiders. 5. This time, the same 3 from before plus 2 more. One with a long rifle slung low, the other with a torch already in hand. They stopped at her fence line. You thought we'd forget. The bearded one called out. Ain't no lie out here, sweetheart, just what we take. Nora gripped her axe. Her stomach twisted, but her feet held. You come any closer, she warned. You won't leave breathing. The man laughed. Whiskey, food, and whatever else you got. We'll be polite, long as you don't make us not. The man with the torch stepped forward. And then a rustle behind them. One rider turned, froze. Red Elk was standing in the open, bow drawn. 4 warriors behind him, motionless in the trees. The bandits hadn't even heard them come. The tension broke like dry wood. One bandit ran. Another raised his rifle, fired. The shot cracked the air. An arrow answered. The fight was over in seconds. One bandit fell, blood bubbling in his throat. The other scattered. Nora stood there, breath short, axe trembling in her grip. One Comanche warrior, young, no more than 20, had taken a bullet to the shoulder. She moved to him instinctively, her hand steady. Hold still, she said. I need to see it. He didn't flinch. She ripped a strip from her skirt, packed the wound with crushed leaves and pine sap, pressed hard. When she looked up, Red Elk was watching her, not speaking, not blinking. Something passed in that look, not gratitude. Something older, recognition. That night, she sat near the fire while Tahu drew lines in the dirt with a stick. Circles, shapes, a horse, a bird, then a woman. He pointed. Mother. Her hand trembled. She stared at the crude drawing. The long hair, the round eyes. She nodded. I had one too, she said. He was small, sick. Tahu looked at her, said nothing. She reached down, smoothed the dirt gently with her palm. His name was Caleb. Tahu placed the stick down. Quiet. They sat like that for a while. No more words, just the fire cracking. Wind moving low through the grass. She didn't cry, but she felt something loosen in her chest. Something that had been clenched since the day she buried her son alone with no priest, no prayer. When she looked up, Red Elk had joined them, crouched silently on the other side of the fire. More will come, he said. Cowards do not return with less. She nodded. Then we prepare. The days that followed were filled with work. They dug trenches, set traps along the tree line, tripwires made of gut and bark, pits with sharpened stakes. Red Elk showed her how to move through brush without a sound. She taught them where the land dipped and hid. Nora dug until her hands blistered. But the ache felt good, real, burned. One evening, as they worked by the fence line, Red Elk stood beside her, watching the sun drop below the hills. He held something in his palm, a bracelet, twine and feathers and tiny bones woven together. He took her wrist, gentle but firm, placed the bracelet there. You are tied now, he said, not to tribe, to land. Nora didn't speak. She simply looked out across the prairie, wind lifting her hair. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was surviving. She felt like she was belonging. Asterisk, the night had held its breath. Now dawn came soft, painting the sky in bruised gold. Inside the cabin, the world was still. Nora lay near the wall, rifle nestled beside her like a loyal animal. Her eyes were closed, but her body knew morning before the light touched her skin. She stirred only when she felt gentle fingers in her hair. She opened her eyes slowly. Tahu sat cross-legged behind her, braiding her hair in small, quiet motions. My mother did this before she died, he said without looking up. The breath caught in Nora's throat. Her chest ached not from fear this time, but something gentler, something almost unbearable. She looked over her shoulder and offered the smallest smile. "Thank you," she whispered. Dot outside, Red Elk sat alone, legs folded in meditation, eyes turned east. The light shimmered across his shoulders like war, paint drawn by the sun itself. No one spoke as the morning came. Then the birds stopped singing, and the dogs began to bark. She rose without a word and took her place. On the ridge, 8 men approached, rifles, torches, cold steel eyes. The bandits had returned. The bearded one led them, now mounted on a tall black horse. His cheek was scarred from where she'd cut him days ago. This time, he shouted, "We burn it all." They spread into a line. One man lit a torch. Nora moved fast. Steady hands, focused breath. She lifted her shotgun, took aim, and fired. The blast split the silence. One bandit fell screaming. The others flinched. Then came the Comanche. They rose. From trenches like ghosts, bows already pulled taut. Arrows sang through the air. One torch fell. Another man clutched his chest, then dropped. Chaos. Gunshots. Screams. Smoke curling through broken branches. A bandit slipped through the side, past the barricade straight toward the cabin. Nora saw him too late. He kicked in the side wall. She grabbed the pitchfork near the door and drove it forward straight into his gut. He gasped once, dropped, blood on her boots. Tahu screamed. Nora turned. A shot rang out. Red Elk had thrown himself in front of his son. The bullet struck his side, ripping into muscle. He dropped to one knee. Nora rushed forward, grabbed his arm, dragged him behind cover. He winced, silent. She tore her petticoated strips and tied the wound tight. "You stay with me," she said, voice sharp. "You don't get to leave." Smoke wrapped the clearing like fog. 2 more bandits fell to Comanche arrows. The rest ran into the woods, into the dust. Silence returned, cracked, burning, holy. When the smoke cleared, the Comanche warriors lay still beneath the oak tree. Nora stood, hands trembling, breath ragged. Only one bandit remained, the bearded one. He dropped his gun and raised his hands. Red Elk approached slowly, blood still leaking through his bandage. He didn't speak, just looked into the man's eyes and pulled a knife from his belt. With one clean motion, he carved a line across the man's face, not deep, but forever. "Let your kind see what silence can do," he said. He turned away. No more was needed. The Comanche buried their dead before the sun was high, wrapped in hides, heads facing west. Nora helped. She dug with her hands. That evening, the tribe prepared to leave. They didn't explain why. They didn't need to. The land never keeps anything for long. Tahu approached her, small arms wrapped around her waist. He didn't speak. She held him, tight, once, then let go. Red Elk stood before her. He looked older than the day he arrived, but steady. "You saved my son," he said. "This land now sees you." She nodded. No words, just understanding. Then they were gone, hers in the distance. Thus rising. Nora stood in the doorway of her broken home, staring at the place where the fire had been. By noon, she had sharpened every tool she owned. She cleaned the blood from her pitchfork and rewrapped the well's rope. She braided her hair, not because it was pretty, but because it meant something now. A hawk circled above, its wings wide against the sky. The wind moved through the trees, brushing against her skin like an old friend. It whispered, "You are not forgotten." She smiled, just once, then went back to work. In a land where silence spoke louder than bullets, one woman chose mercy and found herself. If stories like this still matter to you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because the fire doesn't ask permission to stay, it just burns.